Alberta has a rapidly changing demographic and growing needs of an aging population.
There is no doubt a lot of work to do in this sector, clearly, and there's a lot of opportunity.
In this episode, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Denise Milne, Executive Director of the Alberta Continuing Care Association.
People don't understand how rich working in continuing care is.
Denise brings a wealth of experience and a deep passion for supporting Alberta's most vulnerable populations. What really resonates with me is that you worked as a very young person in a continuing care home.
My grandfather actually was a resident, and it was my way of being able to spend time with him.
Her journey from frontline care to executive leadership is a testament to her commitment to making a difference in the lives of seniors and their families. Together, we'll take a deep dive into the critical role of caregivers, workforce challenges, and the importance of collaboration between government, care providers, and communities. I'm Heather Maxwell, and I would love for you to join A Minute with Maxwell, Mission in Motion. So welcome, Denise. I am so excited to interview you today. So we're going to dive right in now. Perhaps, Denise, you can start off by telling us, you started your career in mental health. And what inspired you to pursue this path? And what have you found most rewarding about the profession? And in what ways has that background influenced your perspective and leadership style today?
So thank you, Heather. Very exciting to be here with you today, and to be on your first podcast, by the way. So that's exciting for your
Yes,
organization.
thank you.
When I look back at my career, I started off working, in actually a nursing home as a summer job where my grandfather was working in the kitchen, and then moved on into sort of the correctional system, and then moved into more of the social services system, and then the mental health, addictions, and disabilities system. And so I've had a really good journey work-wise. But, when I look back, I think, I've had the experience with working in government 3 times with the Alberta government in different roles, whether it was the lead of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder to children's mental health at a ministry, to a variety of other things with government. And then I have experience working with the Alberta Mental Health Board in its day as Program Director of Forensic Psychiatry, Adult Psychiatry, and Professional Practice Councils. And then the experience working with CASA, Child, Adolescent, Family Mental Health, as their CEO for 7 years. And that was really excellent. And then moving from there, I did management consulting with government on FASD and complex needs reviews and a number of other projects. And then I entered into this field. And so it's been exciting coming into the senior sector. I've been with ACCA for a year and a half, built a small team. We got a small but mighty team, and we're producing some really good work, I believe, for our membership and to help shape and influence government in their journey with Assisted Living Alberta.
Wow. And what really resonates with me is that you worked as a very young person in a continuing care home because your grandfather worked there. And I had a similar start as well. My mom opened one of the first retirement homes in southwestern Ontario, actually. And I was always in the retirement home as well. So isn't it interesting that can really influence us as young people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, my grandfather actually was a resident, and it was my way of being able to spend time with him, more time, because I went away to school. So my summer was quite great because I could see him every day, right?
Yes.
And he was a pretty very special person to me.
Yes, absolutely. And I remember clearly seeing my mother work with the residents, and it was she was just so respectful of the residents. And she would actually, at that time, drive them around and take them to their appointments as well. And it was so good for me, I think, to see as a child how you can age with dignity and grace, and that you know, really, anyone that is working in this sector has to have a great respect for seniors, right? And understand that it is important that they live out the rest of their life as actively as possible and with dignity and grace.
Yeah, you know what? I was just at Alan Gray in Edmonton, visiting and spending time with the CEO, Corey Kamat, there this week. And they actually have a daycare in Alan Gray. And the seniors
I
in
love
Alan Gray read books. The kids do music with the seniors.
Yes.
It's a very active daycare that works closely with the seniors living in the facility, and I'm sure it keeps the seniors young. It keeps them
Yes.
entertained. It keeps them, like, involved, right? And for the kids, what a remarkable experience.
It is. It's so remarkable to have that multi-generational approach, right? And the seniors love it and the children love it. It's amazing, right? Denise, maybe you can tell us, Maxwell Management Group has been a long-time member and supporter of the Alberta Continuing Care Association. And for those who may not be familiar, can you share a bit about ACCA and the role it plays in supporting continuing care across the province? And also, how are your members making a difference in the lives of seniors and their families?
So the Alberta Association of Continuing Care, ACCA, um, has been in place since 1981. And so we're going into 45 years. And it's been a very active organization supporting seniors care. And so the membership is made up of for profit, not for profit, faith based members, um, and residential retirement communities, um, housing communities. And we've had some newer members join that are sort of uh, individuals that serve people under 65 as well. And a lot of these programs do, actually, like if you look at Good Sam and Bethany. And so those are really critical programs as well. And then we have a group of business partners, which is made up of what I'll call innovators um, in the system that help with the latest technology, the latest best practice, latest learning practice, things like, and leadership like Maxwell, that really sort of are kind of a support or foundation to the work of the organizations in ACCA, which also includes sort of that continuum of home and community care to long-term care auxiliary hospitals, which Alberta would call type A, and then type B, supportive living, and hospice or end of life are members of ACCA. And then, of course, we have housing and residential retirement residential communities as well. So we've got
Yeah.
quite a good mix of seniors care within ACCA. We have a really good board. And the board, interestingly, comes from the field, which they bring their expertise to the board table, which I believe makes this a very unique organization. And so we have players from home and community care to facility based care at the board table. And then, of course, we work advocacy is one of our main roles, and membership engagement. One of the very cool things about ACCA is we have the power to convene. We bring our members together. And then we work really closely with government to help shape, influence policy and their program directions. And as you know, Alberta is going through a huge, huge transformation. It is a huge undertaking, and I applaud the government for doing this. And so we are one of four pillars in Alberta. So there's the mental health and addictions, there's acute and surgical, preventative and primary care, and then assisted living Alberta. Um, And so I think what's very interesting in Alberta, as we're sort of changing the Alberta Health Services piece and moving stronger and creating these pillars, and ALA is the last to stand up. We are really giving seniors care identity within the pillar, which I think is really exciting. And as you know, seniors don't always have a voice because of their needs. And so
Yep.
here's an opportunity to, through our membership, to have that voice for what's the best interest for seniors in Alberta, whether you're in home and community care or residential care. And so I think it's a really exciting time. Is there a lot of anxiety about it? Absolutely. Is it not? Sometimes it may not feel like we're going as fast as we should be, but we have to be mindful and thoughtful. It takes time to take on magnitude that Alberta's done, is working on. And so, again, we're excited. We think there'll be a number of announcements at our October conference in Edmonton
Oh,
as
God.
ALA continues to stand itself up. We want government to be successful. We want to help them be successful. We are there with our members, to do the best we can.
Alberta's definitely going through significant change with the healthcare system. And it'll be interesting to see how that is streamlined, right? And we know that, and that's why it's so important, the work that you're doing and the advocacy, because we know that about 20% or almost 20% of Alberta's population are seniors now. And in 10 years, they predict that's going to be about 25% of the population. So, for the first time in history, we have more seniors than we do have children. And that is impacting our healthcare system significantly, right? Significantly. So many of us are part of what are called the sandwich generation because we're caring for children while also supporting aging parents. So it's a reality that can feel quite overwhelming at times. And from your perspective, how does the continuing care sector recognize and support families and staff who are balancing these dual responsibilities, and what more can be done to ease that burden?
So we know that informal caregivers provide about 640 million hours of care annually, which is equivalent to about 318,000 FTEs in Alberta. We're all caught in that, right? And we know that
Wow.
caregivers face significant emotional, physical, and financial challenges along the way. So we are very active with various academic areas and practice areas regarding whether it's client-centered practices or caregiving practices. And so we have membership from various organizations. And so the pre-conference in October, on October 14th, we're looking at caregiver-centered practices. With the U of
Mm.
A and a whole team of people across the province and a number of sites, to really continue to lift up the importance of caregivers in our system. It's
Well,
hugely important. I know from my own personal experience with my father-in-law, and I live on a farm west of Edmonton, and he lived south of us. And as he was aging, and struggling with some cognitive issues, my husband's family was what I called resource rich. There's 6 of them, which meant we
oh,
could wrap around services. So we set it up that,
yeah.
you know, everybody took a day. We took 2, the rest of the siblings took 2, and we ensured that my father-in-law, George, who I love dearly, um, you know, had company, had meals, and we wrapped it around that way, even though we had like home care coming in as well to support him in his home because he wanted to die on the farm. Um, we tried to wrap that services tight. Now, not all families are resource rich, like my
That's
husband's
right.
family with siblings. And so it's
Yeah.
that additional pressure. But at some point, my husband burnt out and, he needed to step back so I could step in, so you had to sort of create a nimble, supportive structure to wrap around the needs of my father-in-law. But again, many families don't have that, right? So how do we best help them? And living in rural Alberta, now my husband's finding himself providing support to elderly people where he's connected with them through the farming community, whether he's clearing off their driveways with his tractor or he's checking in on them or, going over there for lunch or coffee, right? Because we want these people to stay in their home as long as possible. And so he's finding this quite interesting because that's part of his daily routine now is checking in on people. Caregivers are essential in the system. We need to continue to acknowledge and recognize their hard work, but we have to have strategies in place to support them to be able to do that work.
Yes. And they say it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to support our seniors, as you're just pointing out,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It
Like
really
these
does
two
take a
individuals,
village.
Heather. Sorry, Heather. These two individuals would not maybe stay in their home as long as possible if my husband didn't clear the snow in the driveway for this one fellow because home care can't come in then. So
Yep,
these
that's
are
right.
the village is everybody. We all have a sense of obligation to support our seniors to stay in their homes.
This podcast is brought to you by Maxwell Management Group. For nearly 2 decades, we've worked side by side with individuals, teams, and organizations to uncover what makes them exceptional and to help them grow from the inside out. It's not just about reaching goals, it's about creating success that feels deeply authentic and genuinely meaningful. Organizations like people have stories, and when those stories are rooted in purpose, they become powerful forces for attraction, culture, and identity. We are committed to partnering with brands that want to lead with intention, cultivate vibrant workplace cultures, and become the kind of employer that top talent seeks out not because of perks, but because of purpose. Over the past 18 years, I've had the privilege of leading Maxwell Management Group's growth into a highly specialized national executive search and education firm, one that thrives on values, vision, and the belief that when people lead with purpose, extraordinary things happen. To find out more about our executive search, recruitment, and education services, please visit us at maxwellmanagementgroup.com. And so in its 2024-2025 budget, the Alberta government allocated $1 billion over 3 years to transform the continuing care system. However, what does this specifically mean for bed count versus human resources? And are we in a crisis given our aging population?
Yeah, that's a huge question, actually, but a good question. So our premier, Danielle Smith, on May 1st at a specific dinner announced that Alberta needs 15,000 new continuing care spaces by 2030. And so
Yes.
ACCA put together a think tank called Invest in Alberta's Continuing Care Think Tank on June 17th in Edmonton. And in that think tank, we had brought people with expertise on finance, on development and design, and there was a panel also on construction, and then one with the operators. And we had a very large, healthy government presence there, and government spoke at the front end. And so the result of that sort of help everybody understand these are sort of the ingredients you need to get to that destination that was noted by our premier. And so we know there's active work happening with government on a continuing care capital infrastructure plan, a continuing care stakeholder group. Like there's a number of things that are happening. ACCA also did a capital infrastructure position paper that became foundational to the Invest in Alberta's Continuing Care think tank, which government has copies of course. And that's
Yeah.
probably become a bit of a blueprint for that area in assisted living and social services for them to move forward on their planning. They are actively working, and we expect that there'll be kind of announcements of what they're doing or communication come out September, October. So capital infrastructure is a huge
Mhm.
piece. The other piece is the funding
Yes.
model. So ACCA put together with member CFOs a funding, we called it modernizing the funding model for continuing care in Alberta. And that position paper went forward to really look at how can the Alberta government modernize a 2009 funding model for facility-based care and home and community care. And so they're actively working on that too. And I'm hoping that that position paper becomes a bit of a blueprint because it was put together by the expertise of chief financial officers of, of continuing care organizations. And then the other piece was around legislation. There were some concerns about that. So we put together a legislation position paper, um,
Oh,
which help if they decide to ever open up the Continuing Care Act in Alberta. And then the other piece we did was a home community care position paper. We called it the front line of care. And it was
yeah.
membership based as well, and of home care operators, from contracted service providers to private to the Blue Cross Client Self-Directed program and a number of other operators, along with caregiver organizations on in the interest group. And we put together that paper, and we're hoping that will become a really good blueprint for assisted living and social services going forward to really focus on home care. Home care is a super critical piece because people want to stay in their homes as
Yes.
long as possible. So what do we need to do to wrap around to keep that person in their home, whether it's medical needs that person needs help with, or non-medical needs, such as, taking out the garbage, such as clearing the snow off the sidewalk, whatever that person needs so that they could be successful in their home. So we've been
Yes.
busy. It's great.
Yes.
We did
Sounds
open up
like it.
qual
Absolutely.
yeah, we opened up a quality care um, membership interest group as well, and a human
Yeah.
resources interest group as well. So we're actively working with our members on that. What we do is we have member meets every quarter, Heather, and as you know, we bring the issues to the member meet, whether it was on navigation, whether it's on human resources, and our members help us drive the discussion paper that's going to come from that we can share back with the members, but also work with government on.
Absolutely. And I am very pleased to be on the Human Resources Committee because I just personally am very passionate about the fact that, with our aging population, we obviously need the infrastructure in place to support the aging population. However, it's equally important that we have the leadership and the staff, all the human resources that actually provide the care and ensure the care is being provided to our seniors. And so, looking ahead, we all have to work collectively. And, you and ACCA, the team at ACCA, have done a ton of work. So, thank you for that. As you are pointing out, it takes a village, right? It is such a huge issue. And we all have to work collectively to ensure that not only the right infrastructure is in place, but also that we have the staff and leadership to sustain and deliver that quality care. So, how do you see that moving forward? It sounds like you've done a lot of research and position papers, but how do you see that actually getting implemented in the future?
Yeah, so we're working closely with government right now on a couple of things related to what they call funding advices for residential care facilities, and then there's the home and community care side. Our labor market is challenged. Wages are a big issue.
Yes.
Government
Yeah.
is working on figuring out how to manage and support continuing care through Assisted Living Alberta on the wage issues because there's a number of negotiations going on and collective bargaining. And so I am hopeful there'll be a positive outcome so that our
Yeah.
wages will be in line with other provinces.
Yeah.
And so that work's underway. And so part of our role is to advocate for the wage issues, to advocate for um, the staffing mix, the type of staffing, the leadership, that kind of thing. I think there's lots of good learning on what has worked really well, but what needs to be changed when it comes to human resource practices in the field. And, I'm always struck by the fact that, um, in continuing care, unlike acute care, where are the mental health therapists? Where are the addiction specialists? Where are the behavioral specialists? Like, where's that in the staffing mix? You know, is there things that we could do different with RNs and things like that? What things we're doing with healthcare aides, with regulations, that's quite interesting. How do we
Yeah.
better support our nursing staff? Physicians, we know that in Alberta, the government increased the number of seats for physicians from 160 to, I believe, 180 at U of A and U of C. And then they're doing a lot of really good work on the rural issues to
Yeah.
encourage physicians to work rurally. However, we need to now look, okay, what's happening with the geriatric piece to physicians? How do we influence students going into geriatric psychogeriatrics, right? So that we can continue to strengthen the continuing care workforce. Government's got
Yeah.
a workforce strategy plan for continuing care that they're reworking. That is a really good document. Really good document. It has strategies in it, has actions. They worked on that, I think, 2 years ago. And so we're hoping they will eventually release that because I think that's a good blueprint for ACCA to jump off with and work with our members on. So
Yeah.
I think there's lots happening. It's just they got to get their governance structure sorted out. Once that's sorted out, they need to action everything. And so as we come along with, here's the blueprints, please use this because this is member driven expertise.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I am so passionate about this. And unfortunately, we don't have time to do a deep dive into all of the things that really need to happen. For example, we could be implementing a lot of dual credit courses at the high school level to
Yeah.
increase the number of care aides, for example, right? That could graduate from
Mhm.
high school and get immediately into that role, right? And same with internationally educated nurses. We know that there are thousands of internationally educated nurses that are already in Alberta that are not registered yet, right? Now, Alberta has done a great job, though, I will say, on identifying and streamlining that process, identifying the internationally educated nurses that are coming in from other countries and who has credentials that are on par with ours and streamlining, almost giving them like a nexus pass at the airport to kind of get them registered quickly if they have, credentials that are on par with ours. So I do really applaud Alberta for, streamlining that internationally educated nurse process. But there's lots more to be done as well, right? As we know. So I wish we could take more of a deep dive into that, but certainly there's lots going on with, looking at human resources and how can we better support the continuing care sector in Alberta, right? So, what role do
Like,
you see ACCA playing in shaping the future of aging and seniors care now in Alberta, Denise?
so there is no doubt a lot of work to do in this sector, clearly. And there's a
Yes.
lot of opportunity to learn and, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater here, or bathwater out with the baby, right? But, there's a lot of opportunity we have a very strong foundation in Alberta, but we have lots of room for innovation, whether it's through the IT roadmap work that we're doing, right? Or the Care for
Yeah.
Staff wellness program that we're doing. So lots of opportunity. I see the future as very bright. I see the future as one of success for our senior sectors, but we have a lot of work to make that happen with all our partners and all our members at ACCA. I think we can drive the change. That's ACCA can drive the change, and we need
Yes.
to drive the change so that Albertans are successful, government is successful, members are successful.
And ultimately, the residents benefit with good
Yes,
quality care and
absolutely.
accommodation.
First and
Right?
foremost. First and
First and
foremost.
foremost, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, as we wrap up, Denise, what message would you share with someone just starting out in their career or with someone considering perhaps a change in careers about choosing continuing care? Would you recommend this sector as a meaningful and rewarding career path?
Absolutely. I was at a meeting one day and a nurse said to me, people don't understand how rich working in continuing care is, because you get to be jack of all trades, but also specialize as a nurse, for example. And you don't get that same experience in other fields. And the interactions with families and with the actual residents or clients in the system is so rich. But your skill set, you get to sort of ebb and flow your skill set by learning new things all the time. And
Yep.
it's a specialty within a specialty, but it has nimbleness and flexibility. And I thought when she said that to me, I thought, that is so cool. That is so cool. You're right.
That's so great. And I want to mention this is not just a sector for clinicians. So many times we talk to people and they go, "Well, I can't work in continuing care. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a care aide." There are so many positions that are non-clinical as well in continuing care. We need maintenance professionals. We need HR professionals. We need operations leaders, right? We need programming professionals, food service professionals. So I really want to make sure that we mention that as well, that there are many, many, many non-clinical positions in continuing care, and we need all of these people to keep, obviously the care and accommodations, the food, everything that's required in continuing care. We need, again, it takes a village and it takes clinical and non clinical people to make that happen. So
Mhm.
finally, Denise,
Absolutely.
imagine this is your legacy interview. Can you tell us what's the one lesson from your leadership journey that you believe everyone should hear?
When I look at what Alberta's undertaking, it's massive. I feel it's really important that, you know, we be mindful and thoughtful as this journey evolves and be patient because of the massive undertaking that has a lot of moving parts. It's quite dynamic. Um, but I really would love, I guess, as a legacy piece, to see a very strong culture in continuing care that feels good about itself,
Mhm.
right? And that feels respected for the work that they do. Because this is hard work, but
Yes.
really important work. And it is about our Alberta seniors and the care we provide through our continuum of operators and care in the system.
Yes. And thank you so much for everything that you do every day, for your continued advocacy and, all of the research and the, bringing together of people, really, right? Bringing together people to support, our seniors in Alberta. So thank you for all of that work. You are just so greatly appreciated. And thank you for sharing with us today. It's been so lovely talking to you.
Hey, Heather, more to come. There is so much more to
Yes,
come.
much more. Much more, Denise. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So thank you for joining us today. And if you would like to learn more about how Maxwell Management Group is supporting the continuing care sector, please feel free to visit our website at maxwellmanagementgroup.com. And also, please like and subscribe to our podcast wherever you download podcasts. Thank you for joining, and see you next time.